Welcome, everybody, to the September 2019 Transformation Talks podcast. I am here with a wonderful spirit and good friend, Jeff Jones. And also joining us today is my Conrad, Marie Mohler, who is going to be part of this conversation with us, which is really exciting because we've never done a Transformation Talk interview, the two of us together. So I'm really excited about that. So good afternoon, Jeff.
How you doing?
Good. And Marie, good afternoon.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
So I'm going to remind our listeners that this podcast is coming to you from Wholesoulschool and Foundation here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And our September theme is engaging our spiritual nature. So we sent out a newsletter and a blog earlier this month. And if for some reason you are not signed up to receive that newsletter, please go to our website at wholesoulschoolandfoundation.com and sign up for our newsletter, because that really kicks off every month. It gives the theme that we are going to address, and it talks about the topic, and then what we've got coming for the month of September, and what we also do a review of the previous month in that newsletter. So it really sort of sets up everything. So check that out. So today's, as I said, this month's theme is engaging our spiritual nature, and I am really excited to be sitting here with Jeff Jones. Jeff spent some time in federal prison when I was a psychologist there, and he participated in a program that I ran there for several years, and benefited from that, I think. And Jeff has also been a teacher to me in many ways. So I'm thrilled to be able to have him on today. And one of the reasons I asked him to do this is because Jeff has, such a beautiful and wise way of articulating his own connection with his higher self, or his spiritual nature. And of course, he may downplay that, but I've witnessed it many times, Jeff. And I love how you articulate and voice your own experience of your own spiritual nature. And we all have our own experiences. Not one of us has the same experience. So I'm really happy that you're here today with us. So thank you.
I'm glad to be here.
Once
again.
Thank you. Yes, you joined us earlier in one of our earlier podcasts as well, when we were talking about the ego.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, today in the spiritual nature of things is you got to be conscious of what's going on in your life every day, and you got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Every day is a new day when you wake up, and to understand that we each have a spirit that is within each one of us, and you got to ask each day, what is my experience of that day to come?
Right. So you learn to kind of have a dialogue with yourself, with your own spiritual self, your higher self.
Yes.
It's critical, isn't it?
In many different ways.
Yeah.
I started out in prison in a place where I was probably not as healthy as I could be, and you talk about mind, body, spirit, and have that moment with it. And once you start connecting, from your heart source, your spirit self, and let it sort of be your guide, you go to many different places, and you see many different walls come up, and you're challenged in that moment to learn the lesson of life. What is my purpose of being here to do this?
Right. Yes, and it's a dialogue that you have that you learn to have with yourself, because I think would say that you were not necessarily a spiritually connected man before you came into prison.
Was not. Didn't had I been to church before? Yes, but I didn't understand what was it within me, and I learned to be okay with myself. That's the first. Everybody's skin's different. Some of them's a little tougher than others, and I probably had some of the toughest. But I learned to like myself first, and then I learned to love myself.
And that's really, I think that for our listeners, and for the purpose of kind of really understanding. We always used to say in group that we acknowledge that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, but many people walking the planet don't recognize or understand that quite yet. They might not have had a spiritual awakening or a connection with their soul self or their higher self. They're still sort of walking around as human beings and reacting to their environment and responding to things outside of themselves, blaming other people for their plight in life or whatever that might be. There's a real disconnection, if you will, from the human self and the spiritual self, or the soul self. And I think that, and I want you to talk a little bit more about how that connection was made for you, and it was made for you in prison, I would say, and you were in prison 8 or 9 years before you actually were in my group and started to look at yourself, look in the mirror, start asking yourself deeper questions, start caring about yourself, and stop blaming other people. And it was 8 or 9 years before you got in the group, and then you got in the group, and that's really when things started to connect in a different way.
Yeah, in the group too, it learned to challenge myself, because I hadn't never needed to do that. I guess because I hadn't put myself in a position to go to the mirror every day and look at myself and reflect back to me, because I actually practiced that. I ran 9 miles a day. I went to the Native Sweat Lodge, but what it all became was actually a place of happiness. And being in that happiness and knowing that I was happy, being here today with you and Marie, it is a place of happiness. I know that. And I know I'm here for a purpose today. Someone out there may be listening and say, he sounds a little different. Yeah, I'm a full-blown hillbilly out of the mountains. They come and drag me down here to Chapel Hill, but I enjoy coming. But to learn myself, I cannot help no one else out there. No one out there until you actually, one, you want to help yourself, and two, you want to practice that help once you get it. And know that you're okay, and know that every day is probably not going to be the same. Some days you're not going to be as happy as the next. But know that if you've got the structure or willingness to go back to that place that you had or want, your bliss, your love, then you can open yourself to what is to come for the next time.
Well, in some ways, Jeff, you make it sound so nice and simple.
It's
but
a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and I know there's a journey in that work to get to the place of that deeper connection with yourself, because that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about a relationship with ourselves, kind of in a spiritual way, on a spiritual level. And I watched you just as somebody who witnessed your journey sort of moving from human to living a human-led life to living more of a soul-led life. And I watched you bridge that. And there were stages and phases and experiences that you went through that opened doors and portals to your inner self.
Yes. Opening those doors, though, we may not want to open those doors, but that experience in itself is what life is about out here, as we breathe the air we're breathing today. I used to go for a run, and a lot of people when they're running, they meditate, they give thought, one foot in front of the other, and I used to picture pushing my spirit out of me and letting it go free for a while, and giving it a chance to maybe let me run it down, because I know the spiritual person that was inside me was authentic. It was truth. It was love. It was a conglomerate of what this beautiful world could be if we see it as that. You know what I mean? It's
if I can jump in here, because there's a visual that you've just given me, and I'm certainly many of our listeners. At first I want people to know that when you talk about running 9 miles a day, this was in prison around a track. So we're just feel the metaphor of running 9 miles around a track in prison. And then I had the picture of you, in a way, getting in touch with that spiritual self that you sort of pushed out of your body, and you would sort of chase it around the track.
Exactly
it sounds
how
like.
it would be.
Yeah.
Exactly how it would be. And that would be, in a place where I didn't think. I didn't have a moment. Everything was the experience of what is. It was a blank slate for the rest of the day.
So would you say that was an experience of really clearing the mind?
Yes.
That there
100%.
was, you really had
and let me go be with myself. Each one of us has got to go sometimes to a place where we quieten ourselves to hear the inner voice in ourselves. And without that, some people may say he's crazy, he's a nut today, and that's okay too. That's okay too, because everybody's got to have their own experiences to understand.
Well, you bring up a really good point, which is, our theme is engaging our spiritual nature. And so one of the ways you engage your spiritual nature while you were in prison was running, and that repetitive movement and being in touch with nature as you did it, and allowing to calm your mind and allow the mind to kind of go over and sit on the bleachers while you were just completely in the present moment and connected to that spiritual self. And
Yes.
It just sounds very, very profound.
The experience I learned from that was I could be happy inside of a prison. And I look at a picture with a pair of shoes that I run in, and I had strings tying them up to hold them together, and it was awesome in its own way, because those shoes, I became the shoes. The shoes didn't become me. I became the shoes. And those shoes stuck with me through over 2,700 miles of running. And believe me, they didn't supposed to be on my feet after probably the first 500 miles, but they stayed with me. So the experience in the shoes alone was to understand who I was and learn that I could take something brand new and it go to threads, literally threads, and I'd be okay with that. It wasn't running in the shoes brand new. It became knowing the shoes and I were going to be okay together.
The shoes and you were one.
Yeah.
And oneness is such a theme, when we talk about our spirituality, the concept of being one with the universe, one with each other, one with nature, one with the tree, one with the sky, this concept of unity and oneness is really, some would say oneness with God. I mean, this
Yes.
is a oneness with our spiritual self.
Creator.
Right. And that's what you had running that track,
Yes.
and over again. And that was your happy place. That was your solitude. That was where you found freedom within walls.
But first, when I very first started out, is I had to overcome the fear of not knowing what I was doing to myself until I had enough strength inside of this body that carries my spirit to be able to do and enjoy and love what I was doing. I think what happened was I brought a fear in when I first went to the track, because I didn't understand, or I was trying to start to understand what's it. If there's another part of me in me, I'm gonna figure this thing out. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna wait till tomorrow. I'm gonna run this body to death, and take it to the limits, and see what else is awake inside of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's really what it started. Yeah, I was sore. You know, my ego was telling me, don't do it no more. We can't do this. But every day I woke up and I'd go and do this. And I got to where I fell in love doing it because, one, I know that I was doing something healthier than I'd ever done in my life, both mentally, physically, and spiritually. So everything, every molecule in me started to enjoy that. So basically, the soreness went away, didn't have it no more. You know, the strength, that's from strength of the body. So once the soreness went away, I started doing fist pumps to myself, saying, "Wow, this is pretty good stuff. You know, let me have a little bit more."
Yeah.
So, I may have started out at a mile a day to start with. Those 9 miles, they come later. And really the 9 miles, when they come in, I was so deep into my spirituality that it gave me a place to focus. It gave me a place to, while I was running, to go pray and meditate. I've listened to a lot of people that runs marathons, and they say you got to go to the place of euphoria and know that you're okay when you get there. When you get done, when you get to that finish line, yeah, you're done, physically done. But their spirit is so happy within them that no one else can even really understand that until you do it yourself.
Yeah.
And they're free. I just want to say they're free in that moment. That euphoria is what I think we all seek.
Yeah.
And runners tap into it that way, and you are able to access that in the most unbelievable of conditions.
Loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I could go to a place where I could be alone within myself and be at my happiest point.
And let's just remind everybody that we're talking about being in prison at this time.
Right.
Hey,
Right?
and everybody that's went through this class, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, everybody has probably got this line, but I will say it. It was the freest I've ever been in my life. I was locked up in prison and couldn't be no happier than I ever was. You can believe that. It sounds crazy, but that's the truth. We would, the guys and us would go in class and we didn't want it to be over. I mean, that was our place where nobody else could do nothing or say nothing, and that was our happy moment. You know what I mean? And then we got to where we carried it outside the class, and we had cubicles, and 5 or 6 of us would go in a cubicle and sit down and start talking and laughing, and the whole unit of 60 men would you could hear people, oh, there they go again. What are they doing? What is she giving to them people? And they would take, they would come by and look at us and shake their heads and say, well, who are they? They ain't no way they locked up. They own something. They're taking something. Yeah, we was on something. We was on life. Yes. I mean, that was awesome.
Yes.
I miss it.
Connection,
yes,
that deep connection.
I miss my brothers if they
real.
listen.
Well, that was
I yearn for that. Being here today with you and Marie, it brings me back. And today I needed that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've sat and conversated before this, and that's okay. But these people out there, they sit and have a conversation also. But when the end of the day comes, they're still in the muck.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I would rather be happy if it's any way possible.
Well, when I asked you earlier about how you would define your own spiritual nature, you said it's a place of peace, love, joy, and connectedness inside of me. Right? And if you take you wherever you go and that experience inside yourself, then you have the ability to stay connected to that spiritual nature most all of the time. But let's be honest, people, we've got life out there. We've
Human
got
beings.
Right. We've got bills to pay, and we've got families to support, and we've got, there are distractions. And I think one of the reasons why this is such an important topic, and one of the functions of Whole Soul School and Foundation, is to be a constant reminder that we can tap into this part of ourself any time we want. And we do need each other to support and to connect and to help us help the neurons fire together. Elevate each other. There it is. Elevate each other.
Put us on the elevator,
right,
and let us float for a while.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And when we were talking about the different ways that you connected to your spirit, while you were in prison. One was the running for sure. The other was the brotherhood of the group, right?
Yes.
The energy of all these men together.
You could go sit and have a conversation, and that is very rare in prison. Just go sit and have a conversation, and if you're having a good day, then it lifts everybody up around you. If someone's not having as good a day, then you can uplift that person, because if you get in a soup bowl full of negativity, you're going to be negative all the time. If you get in a soup bowl of positively, and that's how I say it, positively, you're going to be positive, and you're going to shine. You're going to shine.
And others can choose to join you in that, or not, and they
call us crazy.
right.
Crazy happy.
Yeah, most definitely.
Right.
Well, I know that I used to walk by this posse of guys who just gotten out of group. They'd be on the benches in the middle of the compound, and I'd be going from point A to point B, and I'd look over, and they were laughing and smiling and telling stories, and in the middle of prison.
Freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah. And not many of the other men who did not do the program or did not have that experience could not in any way understand or connect with what was happening.
No, they couldn't.
Yeah.
But I just want to go back to the shoes for a second and the running as an example of it's like an appointment you made with your spirit every day. Once you committed to that practice, and you started to feel more of that connection inside yourself and feel the value of what that felt like from the inside out, that called you to make that appointment and make that commitment to yourself to make that connection every day.
And it was every day.
Every day.
Rain, snow, sleet, or hail.
Didn't make no difference. Wet feet, muddy feet. Track wasn't paved, so you go in the elements, whatever the elements give you, and you go through that. You just prepare yourself physically. If it's cold outside, you put on layers, so as you heat your body up, you can make it through.
I really loved what Marie just said about it was making an appointment with your spirit every day, and we all have this ability to make an appointment with our spirit every day in some way, shape, or form. For you, there were times when it was running, or it was in the group on Wednesday and Fridays,
Sweat Lodge.
Or it was the Sweat Lodge, which we'll talk briefly about. And I just want to say to Marie, Marie being somebody who is a spiritual channel, makes deep appointments with with her spirit every day.
I do, but just like Jeff, and just like many of our listeners, and even you, Lacy, I didn't have that practice in place in my life until I went through a challenge. And it was coming through that challenge that I stumbled forward, seeking something that would provide some comfort and a way out. A way up and through that experience. And so it started with, I was a busy mom at the time, and I only had about 5 minutes a day that I could actually carve out some time to make that time. But I made that 5 minutes happen every day, and it felt like an hour. Right? I made that a very productive and almost a pregnant moment in my day. And that connection grew, just like you said, you started with 1 mile, right? I started with 5 minutes.
Right.
And then I got to 10 minutes, and then I just started enjoying it so much. I went to 30 minutes, and now I can bliss out.
I've had definite worries that you were not coming back down to earth.
Right.
I mean, like we're talking 3-4 hours later.
Yeah. So, you know, and so, but you do, I still to this day, even on the days that I don't connect in that much deeper connection, I make it a point that I connect with my spirit, I connect with my creativity, I connect with my life force, and just the joy I have at being here and being alive and being on this planet and being a contributor to this larger experience we're all having. And so even if it's just 5 minutes, that 5 minutes creates a whole lifetime of energy. It's unbelievable. And when I go without it, when I don't, I find I get run down. I have less energy when I don't make the time to connect.
Well, and I think in a way that's kind of what Jeff was saying, is that even coming here today, you realized that the last several months, even because you've been suffering from some health issues, you know, you've kind of been distracted with trying to take care of yourself, which is good, but you've really needed the conversation and the connection with other people who are
well, y'all two are my sisters, so let me just put it like that. I mean, I needed today for myself, and I thank both of you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well,
we feel it,
and we feel it too.
That's what
Absolutely.
happens when you connect with that family of people that understand that connection with spirit. Because when you're with us, it's just enriching your own experience.
You know, you say you make sure you give yourself the 5 minutes. I run heavy equipment, and I actually use the cab of the equipment because I'm most time inside the equipment. At probably 6 to 7 hours a day by myself, no one else around me, and that's where I really practice being happy within myself, because I can either sit there and really I can sit there and not be happy.
And think about all the negative things going on in life, or the stressors and the worries.
Exactly. Or I can sit there and know who I am spiritually. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if you are in that moment, then you're most of the time, you're giving thought to spirit. You're in your happiness. Mm. You're in your love for yourself.
Yeah. I know for me, when I'm not making time for that. And that's real easy for me to not do because I have so many other things to do, you know. It brings me down. I mean, vibrationally, I get really kind of low. And so I have to be very conscious of taking time for myself. You know, for me, it's yard work. Like if I can go out and dig a hole or move a pile of rocks or cut down a tree, not really like cutting down trees, but trim trees, you know, I quiet my mind while I do that. And that's what's so key to connecting to my spirit. And that's when all my creative ideas come through. That and driving in a car a long distance. Like I used to when I would drive to the prison every day to do group, I would drive 40 minutes. And in that 40 minutes, all the ideas came for what we were going to do that day. I hadn't planned it until that 40 minutes when all my
that was your alone time.
It was. Mm-hmm. It was my time to connect. And so I know also, Jeff, that you spent some time, you connected to the Native American culture while you were incarcerated, which was new for you, and you experienced the Sweat Lodge, and that became a place of sort of a spiritual refuge for you.
Yes, it showed me the power of prayer. It showed me the power of even going deeper within myself, because the Sweat Lodge in itself is a very highly spiritual place to be. And, you know, to be asked to go into this place and then making a choice and then falling in love with it, you know. I have to thank my elders for inviting me to come in and thanking them, because I feel like that is a place I've always been in my life. and to go in the sweat lodge is just another place. This place is pretty warm. To be honest with you, it's called a sweat lodge for a reason. But this place, you gotta put your body aside and allow your spirit to take over.
That's the key.
And you got to hear, these men and participants in this sweat lodge, and as they're praying, and you're praying, or whenever it's your time, everybody's listening to that one thought, and all that energy goes into one place. So it's very, it's very deep. It's very,
profound.
Yes, that's the word came to me, is profound. I mean,
I loved how you said you have to put your body aside.
And that's the same thing I've done with the running.
Correct. I was going to make that connection.
Me running and then getting invited into this place, it had already, my tools had already started developing themselves before I even went in, because believe me, you can ask for the door to be opened to come out, but it's not nothing to be ashamed of if you do. They someone doing it right now probably in the world, asking for the door. They they can't stand the heat, But when that physical part comes up, and you got to separate yourself, and you understand the spiritual self, because there's no way the body can withstand what it's doing inside that. It's no way.
Right.
But to understand, when you go through that, when you go through them houses, and prayer sessions, and you make it, and you have it. What is it?
Ethereal?
Yeah.
Euphoria?
Yeah.
Euphoria.
Feeling of what's at the end is just like being with the brothers, just like being in the classroom with everyone participating.
And all the love.
Yes.
Right?
That's what it is.
Right.
That's what it is. You got someone beside you struggling in there, and you might have to divert a lot of your energy over to that person, and it helps them make it through, and it done it.
Right.
You know what? And you give that. But what you're doing is you're giving that love to that person that may be struggling, and it's just an awesome place to be in.
Jeff, yes. would you go so far to say that had you not received the, how many years of 13-year sentence?
I got 16 years, 195 months, 16 years, 3 months, and I got 27 months off, which is one of my favorite numbers. I figured out, this class really opened doors for me. 9 is a favorite number of mine, and but anyway, what this does, it just opens so many different paths in your life. But you can choose when you come to those forks in the road.
Well, I was just thinking about the years in prison that you did, and my question was going to be, do you think you ever? I mean, isn't it? I don't want to make an assumption, but in some ways, isn't it ironic that you had to come to prison to find this level of freedom within yourself? And had you not gone to prison, would you have ever found this level of freedom?
No, I wouldn't. There's no way. There's no way. If I hadn't ever went to prison, I already know. Mm-hmm. I don't even have to even give it a thought.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a really, just a very...
That's powerful.
Prison saved my life.
Yeah.
Prison saved my life.
In way more ways than one.
All different ways.
Yeah.
So
if we think, I know we could sit in the energy of the profound nature of that for a long time. And I thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people are imprisoned and they don't even know it in their own lives.
We're out here in it now. I'm in it. I'm in it right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what I was going to ask you, it was sort of a segue into you are out. You've been out for several years now. And I'm wondering what you do now to connect to your spiritual nature.
I have a place to go. I have a physical place to go and know. I grow a organic garden. And what this place became, it became my sweat lodge.
Yes.
It became my place of running. It became everything that I had taught myself or I had learned while I was going through these steps. I took it into the growth of the plants. I became that. You know what I mean? I would not. And I let people know. Even if I first invite the people in that's coming in, because it's pretty sacred to me, and this place, I do not take no negative energy in, and what I use is water, so I always, make sure that people's thoughts, I have people comes to me and they said my plants ain't growing. Or I'm having trouble, and I take them out, and I show them a different way of helping the plant, and they might come back, 2 or 3 weeks later and said, "Wow," said I've never grown plants the way you done it, and we're doing it, and it is unreal what is being given to us, So I had been given that knowledge. I practiced that, my garden is pretty substantial in size, and I grow, not one tomato plant. I grow 198.
Just a few.
Just a few. But I could go to each one of those plants, walk by that plant, and know whether I need to help that plant for the day's out. And that's being tied in, knowing that one, I didn't take nothing negative in there, and that plant it will speak to you.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, it's that oneness.
Tree of life.
You're connected, and you are communicating with each other intuitively. Right. So the garden is a sacred space for you, where
place to be.
That's where you. I just keep going back to this feeling that you said. The body gets out of the way, the mind gets out of the way, and the spirit leads, and that's a place where you connect to your spirit, and the spirit is in the plants, the spirit is in the ground, the spirit is everywhere, and that's where you connect. When you get overwhelmed with the have-tos of life, or the stresses of the job, or how am I going to pay this bill, you know that you've got a sacred space, and that's your spiritual practice.
Well, I go quiet myself, because most of the time I'm with myself there. And it's the same way with running. The only thing with running versus this, I used to listen to my breath. I used to listen to my breath while I run, and I could tell, when I had a little anxiety when I was running, because I'd probably be breathing harder, and I could calm it down to where I know I was okay. It's the same in the garden. The running learned me to breathe in the garden, because it's not hard to get overwhelmed with, a third of an acre, and one person tending it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like every one of those plants are your babies.
They're calling.
And they're calling, right.
Right. And
so you have to learn to divide your energy.
Yes. Some sections, when they get to a point that their growth is going to happen, then you may have another one over here that's got to have more of your attention. So you're still in that garden, you're still in that energy, and you're still looking through those plants, but you still got to go tend to the ones that need you at that moment. And that's really, it becomes patient. You got to become patient.
Yeah.
And listening. The level of listening that you're doing in that sacred space. It calls you 100% in the present moment.
100%. Every bit of you.
Yeah.
Not you. There's no need. That's like going in there. If I go in there and saying, I got some tomato plants that don't look as good as others, I don't say that. I go in there and say, well, I'm gonna catch these up with you somehow. So I'm gonna work with you a little bit harder today. You know what I mean? I may soften the dirt up around them, give them a place, give the roots a little chance, and know that I've done my best effort with them. And most of the time they'll come on, you know.
You know, Marie wrote, I believe it was, I'm not sure if it was both the blog and the newsletter or just the blog, but you talk in there. You open the month with the garden analogy, our inner garden. And I didn't know if you wanted to just, since we're in the garden space right now, if you want to talk.
Well, it's just like Jeff's saying, you know, a real tangible garden in a physical space is just like the garden we're tending inside on a spiritual level. And so, you know, we are planting, you know, if we're more conscious about it, we're putting in the seeds we actually want to grow. So that's, you know, that's a conscious gardener. Sometimes we're gardeners in our lives and we don't know where we're growing. We're not even paying attention. So we just get whatever seeds fall in there. And that tends to be our experience. And at the same time, we also get weeds. Weeds grow in our gardens, and those are in the form of the negative thoughts, right? The distractions, the energies that we surround ourselves with, right? That, you know, the weeds also want to flow in the garden. That's part of being here. It's part of being human, a spirit in human form. And so our spirit is the one that knows how to work with those weeds. It knows how to clear those weeds out. Our human selves are often so distracted. Sometimes we don't even pay attention until all the weeds pile up that we don't even have in a garden anymore. We just have a meadow of weeds. Yeah. So, you know, all of this is a metaphor for what's going on with our spirit. And we have to sort of tend our spirit like you tend a garden. And it's a daily practice. And you take anything you're trying to grow and you take away water and sunlight and you see a whole lot of weeds just take off and flourish in there, and you're not feeling so good. You know, you have that lower energy, less energy, more fatigue, more struggle, more challenge. And so I find if you are tending the spiritual garden and you do start to pay attention, you go into that fear. I think you said when you started running, you know, instead of being afraid of the fear, you look at the weed, you look at the fear that's like blocking even your access to your own inner garden, those fear seeds, and you start just, you know, taking away the ones, facing the things that you didn't want to face, start looking at those things and moving through them and weeding them, conscious effort by conscious effort, until you have a flourishing garden again. So it's a perfect metaphor for, I think, our journeys here on the planet, this gardening. And, you know, it was very natural, I'm sure, to you to go from the running and the sweat lodge and the spiritual practice you had in the prison to needing to create a space for that, like that for yourself. And you literally grew the garden. Yeah.
You know, talking about the weeds.
Yeah.
When I've not been well physically in the last few weeks, like I said, I would not even approach the garden. And I can tell you physically, within probably 2 weeks of me leaving the garden, all the plants were gone.
Wow.
Everything left.
Wow.
So without the, you know, I believe, you know, my energy put into it and not being able to go be with it and be in the moment, the plants knowed it was time to leave.
Wow. The life force.
Yeah.
The life force.
So did the weeds take over? Yes. You know, I think, you know, you was bringing that up, and I was sitting there going, man, I was covered up.
Yeah. And weeds don't need tending.
No.
Weeds come automatically.
Right.
So what we have to tend to is what we really love.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I physically got sick, I had to quit physically. You know, and I'm a physical, work is my joy. I will say that. And I had to physically put the brakes on in order to be here today.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and know that.
Yeah.
And you had to tend the garden of your physical body. You had to.
My molecules wasn't firing off the way they needed to be.
Yes.
You know, I done had them. You know, I had the weeds growing up around them all the time, and they couldn't heal themselves. So now I'm here today.
Yeah, attending a different garden.
It's awesome.
It is awesome.
Well, we are about out of time, but Jeff, I cannot thank you enough for being here to share your experiences with with your own journey to your own spiritual nature, because you have been a teacher for me, for sure, as I've watched you kind of journey from human to soul. And we're always human, but we do have a higher self, a non-physical self, a spiritual self. And Marie and I will spend at least 2 more podcasts talking with each other about how we see it and how we've experienced it and how we continue to connect with our own spiritual nature. So, but I would review for our listeners today that, your running, your time in the sweat lodge, your meditation time, your time in prayer, the time where you can take your mind and body kind of out of the picture and allow your spirit to lead, was just profound. And you continued to practice it when you came home from prison by creating your garden. And I just think it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful truth. And we're just, I think we're all feeling so blessed that we can share this with each other today. And hopefully our listeners will certainly take away some ideas, some connection to what's been said. So thank you, Jeff, so much for being here.
Oh, I appreciate coming.
Yeah, and Marie,
I really honestly do.
Very special. And Marie, thank you for your thoughts. And I know we're going to jam on this topic. And
we are. We've got a little more to say.
We have a little more to say about it.
Yeah.
But I thank everybody for listening. And just remember, you can go to wholesoulschoolandfoundation.com to our website. You can join us at YouTube at Whole Soul School and Foundation. You can see us on Facebook and Twitter. And of course, please sign up for the newsletter via our website and think about donating. Think about a donation to Whole Soul School and Foundation, which really helps us spread the word, spread the messages, share the messages, connect with people in this way, because it's so important to maintain a certain level of energetic vibration. And we're here to help walk each other home to our spiritual nature. And so thank you.
Yeah.
Blessings.
Thank you. Blessings, everyone.